Okay. Vayuchai Sarah Mea Shana ve'Esrim Shana ve'Sheva Shanim Shrei Chai Sarah. And the years of the life of Sarah were 100 years and 20 years and 7 years. So these were the years of Sarah's life. Pasuk. Avi's question, Rashi addresses.
Why did they split it up into three?
Exactly. So Rashi writes, right, why do you say, how old are you? I am 30 and 8. That's a strange thing to say. So why did the Torah say she's 120 and 7? It says Rashi lekach nechtav shana b'chol klal kol. It says year, the word year after each one divides it up. Lo melacha shekol echad nidrush la'atzmo, that each one should be darshan for itself. You can learn something up from each one. Bas kov kabas chaf lechet. When she was 100, it was like she was 20 for sin. Now why 20? Because many people don't know this, but even though we become required to do mitzvos, hello, Shalom. Even though we're required to do mitzvahs when we're 13, and we can get punished in the court down here, the Bezdin Shalmata, we don't get punished in the Bezdin Shalmala in the upper court until we're 20. So when she was 100, it was like she was still 20 for sin. She had no sins. And then it says Ma Bas Chav L'chata Shari Eina Bas Einchin, right? Av Bas Kuv B'lochet Ubas Chav K'bas Sheva L'Yaifi. And then it says she was 20, like she was 7 for beauty. Now, that sounds weird at first glance. I mean, who's more attractive, a 7-year-old or a 20-year-old? A 20-year-old. 7-year-olds are like cute, like kids. Attractive, like beauty, that would be a 20-year-old. So, Ramosha Einstetter addresses this in his Sefer. He also brings other sources. You look, that the Torah sometimes says that the imahos, or great-great-great-great-grandmothers, they were very beautiful. Doesn't Judaism not count that as a value? I thought we care about what's on the inside. So, like, why are we talking about Sarah's beauty, the fact that she was beautiful like she was 7? Why are we talking the beauty of the Emos? So there's a Gemara. Gemara Bab Basra Nunchas Amud Aleph 58a says as follows: Shufra de Rav Kahana, the beauty of Rav Kahana, Me'ein Shufra de Rav, was like the beauty of Rav. Shufra de Rav, the beauty of Rav, Me'ein Shufra de Rebbe Avo, was like the beauty of Rebbe Avo. Shufra de Rebbe Avo, Me'ein Shufra de Yaakov Avinu, and the Shufra, the beauty of Rebbe Avo, was like the beauty of Yaakov, our forefather. Shufra de Yaakov Avinu, Me'ein Shufra de Adam Harishon, and the beauty of Yaakov was like the beauty of Adam Harishon, Adam. Like the beauty of Adam, the first man. You're also very beautiful. So, Adam. So, what's the aside here? What's the principle here about the beauty? Why are we obsessed? Are very concerned about the beauty. Why specifically the beauty of Adam? So Adam was the only creature, the only human who was directly created by Hashem. Adam. All of us have parents. Every human being in the world has parents, except for Adam. Adam was created directly by Hashem. That represents a certain spirituality that he had, a certain connection to Hashem that nobody else has. When we talk about beauty, we're not talking about simple physical beauty, but we're talking about a beauty. You can see it physically, but it's really an expression of the spiritual level that a person is on. There are certain people that are just so holy, that are so close to Hashem, that spirituality shows forth even into their physical being, even into their physicality. Now, the more pure an individual is without any sin, the more beauty they're going to have. So who's going to be the most beautiful? Potentially a child. A child, a total innocence, no sins, is a beautiful kid. If you ever look, I'm telling you, go to a cheder, go to a Beis Yaakov in Lakewood, there's something special about those kids, the way they look. That the fact that they're not bar mitzvah yet, they don't have any sins, and they sit and they study Torah all day. There's something special about a person. I study Torah, but I sin also. All of us, we sin. We're over 13. They don't have sins yet, they're not 13. And they just sit and study Torah. There's something special about those kids. If you look at them, I'm telling you, you can see it. You see it in Shalom Torah. There's certain kids there that study Torah. There's a certain sweetness, a certain light that they have in their face that you don't find in other places. And that's what we say when we say the beauty of Sarah, that when she was 20, it was like she was 7. because her spiritual beauty, her connection to Hashem was so strong, her neshama was so strong in her that it even expressed itself through the physical. I've mentioned this story before. I'll say it again because I like it. It's true that I took someone to see Rav Elyashiv once at Havdalah, and the guy came out and he's like, wow, he was glowing. Like he had a glow about him. You could see that his neshama was shining through in even his physical essence. When there's a harmony between the physical and the spiritual, you can see even that spirituality come through. Because usually, we're in a physical world. We have a neshama, but we're totally bombarded by physicality all the time. So somebody who is worked on himself his whole life to reach a high spiritual level, to do mitzvahs, avoid sin, study Torah, such a person could have the shine come forth. They say about Rosh Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, you could also see the shine. I also have the image of my Rosh Yeshiva with the talus over his head speaking to us on Rosh Hashanah. He also had a shine. It's just, there's something there. You can even see it in the physical. I mentioned this before also, that a photographer in Israel told my Rosh Yeshiva that she takes pictures of big rabbis, and sometimes you can't always capture their glow on film, but they always have a glow. That's what he said. Okay, so that's what it says about Sarah, and that's why we say the emos were beautiful, because of the spirituality expressing itself in the physical. Okay, the pasuk continues, but Tama Sarah b'Kiryas Arba, he Chevron. She passed away in Kiryas Arba, which is Chevron, Be'eretz Canaan, in the land of Canaan. V'yavo Avram lispod l'sar v'liv kosa. Avram came to eulogize her and to cry over her. If you notice in the Torah, the chaf is small in the letter of v'liv kosa, and to cry over her. So why is that? So the Vilna Gaon says, usually when people mourn, they mourn for two reasons. One is they mourn the person isn't here anymore. They lost the body's gone, they're not here. Also they mourn because the soul did not accomplish everything it could have accomplished. It's a very sad thing. A person didn't live up to his or her potential. So a person cries over that. You cry over a person that maybe they didn't live up to their potential. The chaf is small here is because Sarah utilized every moment of her life to the fullest, and they only needed to mourn for the fact that she wasn't here anymore, not that she didn't live up to her potential. There's another Rashi here. So it says also in the previous Rashi, the previous pasuk, Shnei Chayei Sarah, the years of Sarah's life, Kulan Shavon L'Taiva, they were all equal for goodness. All of her years were good. She had a very happy life. Now, I hear some murmurs in the crowd. Quoting from Rav Melech Biderman. Rav Melech Biderman asks, let's look at her life. She was barren for 90 years. She was kidnapped by Paro. She was kidnapped by Avimelech. She was tormented by her maidservant Hagar. Her stepson, I guess you would call it, Yishmael, was bothering her son. She had a lot of difficult things in her life. So the answer is that many people say that it's all perspective. When you recognize that everything comes from Hashem and that really the bad is also good, then a person can live all their lives in goodness. Obviously, this is easier said than done. It takes a lifetime of work to get to that level where we can recognize that even bad things are really for the good. Now, why are bad things really for the good? So one is that when bad things happen to us, it erases sins that we did and gets us closer to Hashem. So it's a kapara, it's an atonement, so that's a very good thing. Actually, I read something else interesting over Ben Azmanim, over Sukkot I saw this. The Drashos Haran, the Haran was a Rishon. He was one of the early rabbis, I believe. He lived in the 1300s. He had 1300s in Spain. And he has a lot of drashos. He has a lot of essays about fundamental ideas in Judaism. And one of the things he says is that there are two parts of a person. I don't know if you would call it personality, but there's two aspects. A person has seichel, his intellect, his mind. And he also has what's called dimyon, which is imagination. And he says dimyon, dimyon, imagination. I just said it yeshivish. Dimyon. It's really dimyon. So, he says, this is also echoed by Rabbi Shol Salanter, imagination is really the Yetzer Hara. We imagine, our minds think that if we do this sin, it is going to be amazing. It's going to be awesome. If only you could get that taiva, it'll be like the best thing ever. And what happens after we get it? It's okay. But that is the Yetzer Hara Dimyan, is to get us to think. If we would think with our just a pure intellect, well, why am I doing that? Does Hashem want me to do that? No, so I won't do it. Why don't we always act like that all the time? Because we have this other part, we have this imagination. Oh man, if I eat this non-kosher food, it's gonna taste so good. I'm gonna be happy for like a week. It's gonna be great. And then we eat it, we're like, okay, it was good, but like, whatever. So the Ran writes that when a person suffers difficulties, the Kayach HaDimyan, that the power of imagination in a person decreases. When the power of imagination decreases, then your intellect increases, and the intellect helps you get closer to Hashem. Because the intellect, the pure intellect, is on a higher level than imagination. And he writes also, as a person gets older, his imagination weakens. I noticed this a little bit. I'm not so old, but from the time you're a teenager, certain things you imagine are like, whoa, and then you get older, and it's you realize it's the Yetzer Hara. That's what it is. So Rabbi Shol Salanter also speaks about this a lot. That Dimyan, this imagination, is the Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer Hara convinces us. He warps our mind, he warps our thinking, that an Aveira is going to be the most amazing thing ever. Like, we have to do it, and if you don't do it, you're going to be missing out. And it totally warps our thinking. But intellect is a much higher level of thought that is actually a more spiritual, using our intellect based from our neshama to come close to Hashem. That's what we're supposed to use to come close to Hashem, our intellect. We're supposed to use our intellect to study Torah. Right? That brings us close to Hashem. We use our intellect to daven. Also our feelings in davening, but we have to use our mind to focus on the words. So what he says is, when a person experiences hardship, there's a silver lining there. Yeah, this is a horrible experience I'm having right now, but you should know Hashem does this partially to weaken the fantasy that a person has, weaken the imagination. My Rishi once gave a speech about this at Torah Masorah. It was just saying how if you look at the whole educational system, the whole like reading novels and the television and everything, it's all based on imagination. That's what a TV show is, or Harry Potter. No offense, but Harry Potter is, I know it's good, but it's an imagination. It's not real. It's fantasy. That part of a person, fantasy, is the thing that the Yetzer Hara uses to get us to sin. That same thing. I'm not saying that it's like an Aveira to read Harry Potter. I'm just pointing out that the reason you enjoy Harry Potter is the same reason that the Yetzer Hara could get us to sin, because we're doing imagination. So he was making the point in Yeshiva that we shouldn't be encouraging kids to read Harry Potter and things like that, but focusing on the seichel and the intellect. But that's the idea. So when a person suffers, even though it's very difficult, the power of the imagination weakens, which helps a person getting to Hashem. Why am I saying this? I'm saying that there are many reasons why, that there are many positive things. No one wants to suffer, but there are many positive things when a person suffers that come out of it. I'm just pointing two small ones. One, sins get erased. It's a very good thing. Two, is that a person's seichel, his intellect, increases and his Yetzer Hara decreases, in the sense of his imaginative faculty, and that helps him get close to Hashem. And he writes, Rabbi Yirmiyah quotes the Chidah here. He says that's why the first word of the parsha is a palindrome. A man, a plan, a canal, Panama, spelled the same front way and back way. Race car. What else? What's the other one's famous one? What was it? What else? There's another famous one. Okay, I don't know. Something about a bologna and a salami. This is a palindrome, the famous one. Anyway, so the first word of the parsha is Vayiyu. It's spelt the same way forwards and backwards. So the Chidah writes, the reason is to hint that even when it went backwards, the bad years of Sarah's life were just as good as the front years. No matter which way you slice her life, it was they were all equally good. Okay, that's what he says. Now, you'll notice next in the parsha, which is an interesting thing, parsha talks a lot about a burial plot. Avram buying a burial plot. Why is that? It seems like a strange thing to focus on. Okay, he went to the cemetery and he bought a burial plot, or he got it with the shul membership. That him and his family could be buried there. So the reason is because Abraham was trying to inculcate the message in the Jewish people and drive it home that when a person dies, they don't die. It's only a person's body. The main part of a person is the soul, and the soul lives on. You buy a burial plot, because the body has human dignity. The only reason the body has human dignity is because it was a receptacle for a soul that was close to Hashem. Right? If a body didn't have dignity, didn't have that connection to Hashem, you could just burn it. Right? That's what idolaters did. That's what people do now. But Judaism recognizes, no, the main part of the human being is the soul. This body was a holy thing because it was a receptacle for the soul, so it needs to be treated with respect. So Avram was trying to drive this message home to the Jewish people. That's why the Torah keeps talking about it. Also, it's interesting. The Rabbeinu Yonah says, Rabbeinu Yonah writes, we know there were 10 tests of Abraham. So most Rishonim say the last test of Abraham was the test of the Akedah, where he was commanded to find his son and sacrifice him, or bring his son up as a sacrifice to Hashem. Now, that seems to be like the hardest test. However, Rabbeinu Yonah says the 10th test was actually that he had a hard time buying the cave, buying Machpelah. Why is that a test? That seems like big test. Now, okay, he had a difficult monetary transaction. So, Rabbi Fran writes that the reason is because people, they accomplish something and they feel like, okay, I did something really good now. I did the Akedah. Now I can just chillax for a little bit. I can retire, take a breather. So you picture Avram Avinu, he just passed the hardest test, and then all of a sudden, boom, something else comes up. Hashem, what do you want from me already? I just almost sacrificed my son. Now I can't even buy a grave for my wife. So that in itself is a test. That Avram didn't say, you know what, leave me alone. I need some time to relax. He kept going. He kept serving Hashem. And Rabbi Fran makes the point. You ever hear of a Rosh Hashiva who retires and moves to Florida and plays golf? They don't do that. My Rosh Hashiva is in his 90s and he is more busy than most people my age. It's insane. Insane in a good way. He gives shir, he meets with Bachram, he runs a magazine, he speaks, he helps run Torah Masorah, helps run the Aguda. Half the week he's running to different weddings of different students in New York or Baltimore, doing a million other things I don't know about. Also learning Torah from 5 in the morning. So, and he's in his 90s. And I'm a little over a third of his age. I can't do that. My point is that when you live your life for spirituality, you live your life to get close to Hashem, there is always something to do. There is always something to do. Whereas, look at people in our society. 65, you retire, you play golf, you eat dinner at 3:30 p.m., you go watch the boats, your early bird special, you got to go to the diner, you watch the boats, you go on a cruise here, you go on a cruise there. It's it gets boring after a while. That's the whole point of life. The whole point of life is to work really hard so you can eat dinner at 3:30, and then you get to compare your pills and go to different doctors and talk about all the doctors you go to. Right, that's people. That's what old people do. It's the saddest thing ever. And then that's if you're lucky. If you're not lucky, then you go into some nursing home where the people there just ignore you and you might pass away because of neglect. So, not speaking from personal experience. Maybe. My point is that when a person lives, when the goal of his life is ruchnius, is spirituality, get close to Hashem, no matter how old he is, he's never done, and there's always something he could do. Even a person, chas v'shalom, God forbid, is paralyzed, let's say, totally paralyzed. Let's say someone has ALS, can't do anything, can't move anything. From a secular perspective, the guy's might as well kill himself. There's no point of living. From a Torah perspective, even in that state, it's extremely hard and difficult. A person can still serve Hashem. If his mind's still there, he can still serve Hashem. He can still study Torah. He can still think about God. There was a fellow, he recently passed away. I have a video of him. He had ALS and he finished the Talmud. He finished Shas. He had a special program and he learned the Talmud. He had a chavrusa that he studied with. I'm saying, that's the beauty of Yiddishkeit, is that no matter what situation a person finds himself in, he can always get close to Hashem. And you just look, and you'll notice that a lot of big rabbis live a very, very long time. They live I never did an official study, but I think it's pretty clear that the ratio of big rabbis that live over 100 is way higher than the general population. I just want to say that. Someone wants to do a study about that. Okay. Let me do one more thing here. Yeah, there's one more idea, and then we'll finish. So it says the pasuk says that Abraham was old in years. You see the pasuk here, 24:1. But Abraham zakim b'yom, he was old. He came in days. Hashem berach es Abraham b'kola. Hashem blessed Abraham with everything. So what does it mean that he was well on in years? So it says that Abraham utilized every moment to serve Hashem, and that we're not just going to be judged in the end for what we accomplished in our life, but how we used every moment. That it shouldn't get a person neurotic to think like every moment I have to be serving Hashem, and that doesn't work. But he writes that he quotes Melech Biederman here quotes the Yaros Dvash. He says that don't waste your time. I'll read it here. Don't waste your precious time with the foolishness of the world, such as idle talk, discussing wars, who will win and who will lose, hunting, or other forms of emptiness. I guess hunting, that would be sports, and then I guess talking about wars would be like politics. These are deeds fitting for princes, but why should you waste precious time on them? It's very foolish to exchange the real world for a world of falsehood. How can one waste time? And then he says that if a person would pay you $1 million to die a few days earlier than you're planning, let's say the person knew the day that he's going to die, and the person you offered $1 million to die a few days earlier, I don't think most people would take it. Rather live their full life. So he says, imagine how valuable.
A
few days? I wouldn't.
Leave a fortune to your family?
Oh, okay. So that's already a spiritual thing because you're doing chesed to your family. I'm saying for the money for yourself to enjoy it. Most people, I don't think.
Couldn't spend that much in 3 days.
Right. So he writes that deep down, we really value time. We really, really value time, but we don't always live that way. I think it was the Chavetz Chaim. They say he had a very humble house, and to have extra things on his house like decorations and things, he would think, well, that's time that he would have to work more and take away time for Torah. And besides the bare necessities, he didn't want to have to work and give up Torah because time is money, time is Torah. Every amount of time that you give up to earn money to, let's say you want a nicer car, or what did they have back in the day? Whether he wanted a nicer horse and buggy and a nicer table and chairs. In his mind, that's I have to give up how many Masechtas do I have to give up to learn, and how many Black Gemara. To him, that was so valuable that it's not even worth it. So he's making the point of the value of time. And they say that there was a mashal. Someone went into the headstone, looked at the headstone and said, "Here lies so and so. He lived for 2 years." And another person had said he lived for 1 year. And it was very sad. He's seeing all these kids that died, and then he sees the rabbi of the town. And he lived for 10 years. Like what? They had a 10-year-old rabbi. So someone told him that no, the custom in this synagogue is to write on the tombstone how long someone spent his life in Torah mitzvahs. You take everything because that's really what life is about. Life is about doing Torah mitzvahs. That's all we write on the tombstone, and that's the point. But we see from this whole parsha that the main thing is ruchnius, is spirituality, is getting close to Hashem, is serving Hashem, doing what Hashem wants. That's the main life. Everything else we get distracted. The Yetzer Hara likes to arouse our imagination. We think that if only we had this amount of money, we could do this and we could do that, and we'll be so happy. It'll be amazing. Wow, if I had a few $1 million, my life would be great. Let's be honest. I think we know. $1 million, things would be easier, but in certain ways. But other problems would arise. I know some very wealthy people that are very unhappy, and money doesn't buy happiness. And but our Yetzer Hara.
Lost half of it we get.
What? Oh, I wasn't thinking specifically of that. So that could also be.
$1 million would be nice right now.
It would be nice, but my point is, your imagination right now is making you think it's going to be a lot better than it actually will be, and that's the Yetzer Hara. That he does it to all of us. There was years ago at Rutgers. A college student saw an ad. I heard this from my law professor when I was in business law professor. He said that there was an ad in the paper, Corvette, $100. So the kid called the number and said, "Can you hold that for me?" He's like, "No, you have to come buy it right now." Goes to some lady there. He's like, "You recently had a Corvette for $100?" Said, "Yep, you want it?" He said, "Okay." Gave him $100, got the Corvette. Turns out the husband had cheated on the wife. They're getting divorced, and the husband said, "Sell all of our assets, we'll split it." So she sold the Corvette for $100, and the whole court case. If if you can, and it held up in court, so she wanted to get back in it. So she sold the court back for $100.
Back in herself because she must have.
Yeah, but you see what people do just to get revenge. Someone will give up tens of thousands of dollars. You see that?
They don't think.
Tamas nafshim polishtim.
You don't think?
But we're saying the point here though is Ruchni is getting close to Hashem. That's the main thing. That's the main thing.